Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Chaos, blunders, total unpredictability. This is how the 2026 Tata Steel Chess Masters began. But while the world's elite chess players were slipping, also including the world champion, they were collapsing and struggling to survive, one player didn't just adapt to this whole format. He took control completely over this. And he is none other than Nodirbek Abdusattorov. In a tournament that has humbled world champions and exposed even the smallest weaknesses, Abdusattorov has emerged as the most stable, most dangerous force on the board. Now in this Masters section, all of the players who are participating are extremely strong and elite world's top grandmasters. So basically there's it's very competitive. And of course, there are no basic blunders that's going to happen. That is at least what we think. But unfortunately, in this 2026 Tata Steel, anything can happen. A lot of unexpected things, a lot of unexpected results, moves, blunders. So by round 7 right now, he stands at the top. Nodirbek, not because of luck. Well, of course, there were some games where he won, but it should have just been an equalized position. But because he consistently punished his opponent's slightest mistakes where others somehow couldn't. And here's the real shocker. Both first and second place right now after round 7 are from Uzbekistan. So there are Nodirbek Abdusattorov and Javakir Sindarov, who is the 2025 World Cup winner. This isn't a coincidence, of course. This is a warning. Uzbekistan is no longer the future of chess. It is the present. And Abdusattorov looks like the face of it all. Calm under pressure, that is, relentless in conversion, and unfazed by reputation. In the middle of chaos, he plays like someone who simply expects to win this whole tournament. And right now he is in a 1-point lead. So the question isn't who is playing well anymore. The question is anyone going to be able to stop him? Is anyone capable of stopping Nodirbek Abdusattorov on winning the 2026 Tata Steel? There are still a couple of rounds left, so maybe there are some turning points that could happen, but most likely, well, in my opinion, it is already a 2-horse race between Abdusattorov and Javakir. Alright, today I'm going to show you guys 2 games. Well, actually not 2 games, but first of all, in this very first game, I'm going to show you guys this position, which I think, in my opinion, is one of the most dramatic position in this whole event. Even though there's still a couple of rounds left, but I think this one stands out the most no matter what. And as you can see, it is one of the most decisive games for Nodirbek because he is playing against the current world chess champion Gukesh Dommaraju, who is very strong, of course. And this position right now is a completely equalized one. And maybe even black has some chances due to, white's king is also not in a good shape. But of course, black also needs to fix his own problems. And here with 8 minutes left on the clock here, Gukesh, he spent like 3 minutes thinking and played a move that I think even someone who has studied for a couple of months would realize that it is losing on the spot because it loses material. And if you guys have been following this tournament, then you might have known that Gukesh played this shocking blunder, Rook g5. And as you can see, the eval bar doesn't really like it at all. And after Rook g5, well, the problem is that Nodirbek here can just simply play Queen takes f6 and the king is forced to go back to g8. But then after Queen takes g5, white is up a full rook. And this is just completely over for the black pieces. So can you just imagine that the world champion spent like 3 minutes thinking and played this move Rook g5? And this was really lucky for Nodirbek because if Gukesh had just played something like f takes e5, basically, or rook f8 to defend this pawn, it's going to be a completely okay position for black, and both sides will have equal chances for the endgames. But unfortunately here, this rook g5 move just happened, and I could say that Nodirbek was really lucky to win this game. But of course, luck is still part of like your skills, and it could still show that he is really strong because he most likely put a lot of pressure on Gukesh. Alright, so that's for that game. And now this main game today that I'm going to show you guys is the one played between Vincent Keymer against Nodirbek, who Nodirbek is with the black pieces. And let's jump straight into this. This is round 7. And here we have c4, c6, knight f3, d5. And for the opening, this is quite theory and standard. Well, I mean, yeah, like this is all opening moves. d4, knight d7, queen c2, bishop d6, g4. G4, I could say, like, this is, of course, not what we see. Like, this is not a common line. It is playable, but of course, you need to play this with a lot of preparation, or else if you just thought of this move while you're playing, and it's going to be too much calculation, and most likely if you don't analyze this before the game, you won't have the courage to play a move like g4, which is so aggressive. Now basically maybe moves like bishop d3 and b3 or bishop e2 developing the pieces all make sense. But here Vincent plays g4 with confidence. Definitely he prepared this, and for Nodirbek, he took on g4 immediately. Now this is the correct response. You could also play h6 if you want, but knight takes g4, it is a free pawn, so you just take it. But of course, white has compensation with rook g1 attacking this knight. And here basically all of the outcomes or the couple of moves after g4 are all kind of forced. Black here needs to play queen f6. The point is that if you take this knight on g4, which was played in the game, black can take the knight on f3. But of course, white here can win the pawn back by playing rook g7. And even though white's now equalized the material, but the computer still suggests that black has a slight initiative, because after this move, knight f6, as you can see, white is spending a lot of moves moving the rook and also not really developing these pieces. So that is the negative side of playing g4, although it could be like a surprise for your opponent sometimes. And here knight f6, but it looks like that Nodirbek knows what he is doing, and he is playing all of the correct moves against g4. So here after this move, rook g5, and then queen h1. You can see like what is both of these two players doing. Like white is just moving this rook, and black is moving the queen. But it turns out that queen h1 is the best move in this position. Let's say for black, if you play something like rook g8, you want to trade this rook, and white will just take it. And after knight takes, the question is, how is black gonna, come up with some ideas? Because there's also queen h7 that is possible. And so basically here, after a g5, if you want to play moves like knight e4 to blockade this diagonal, well, after takes, let's say you take, I mean, this position, white is doing completely fine because black is not giving any pressure towards white. So queen h1 here, the reason that it is the best move, and it is the only move that keeps the advantage on black side, is because it gives white pressure, and also it is going after this h2 pawn directly. So here white played the move f4, and after bishop d7, even though this queen seemed a little bit awkward on h1, but as you calculate a couple of moves, you see that there's no way that white can attack this queen or get to trap it. So after bishop d7 here, queen f2 was played. Now white is actually threatening to play rook g1 to trap this queen, so black needs to do something. And here knight e4 was played. After knight takes e4, queen takes e4. This position, it is completely equalized because already both of the knights are off the board, and I could say that the pawn structure is quite similar. I mean, there are no pawns on the g file for both sides, and these two bishops, or like these two pairs of bishops, they're not really that active. Basically, it's a game between the queens and the rooks. So here, of course, bishop d2 was played, and now both sides will get their king to safety. Bishop e7 attacking the rook. Rook goes to h5. This is completely fine so far. Queen c2. It looks scary, but black is not really, threatening anything right now besides attacking the b2 pawn, but white can just simply go queen d1, and the queen has to go back. Because here, if you take on b2, then this is a mistake due to the fact that there's rook b1. You could take another pawn, but after rook takes b7, even though here black is up a pawn, but as you can see, black's king is really weak, and white's pieces are just way too active. Maybe bishop c8 can still be holdable for the black pieces, but still, all of the pressure are on black's side. And this is not what black is really looking forward to. And Nodirbek here just decides to go for something more calm and retreat it back to g6. Now here, this is a position where it is quite closed. I could say there's only one open file, which is the g file, but for both sides, it's not that useful, even if you take control of it, because all of the squares are being controlled by your opponent's pieces. And here Vincent played this move, bishop a5. It is a mistake, but just for the computer, it is a mistake. As a human, it's not that easy to see why this move. It looks weird. Definitely it looks weird. Why is the bishop going there? But the idea, of course, is to go bishop c7 and maybe reroute this bishop to a better spot. But here, for Nodirbek, he also didn't play the best move. He played the move e5. Now, the best move is simply to play b6, and the bishop will have to go back to d2 or c3. And black can just say that your move, bishop a5, is a mistake because it doesn't do anything. It helps black to gain a tempo by playing b6. And that's it. Very simple idea, but sometimes, we don't realize that it is that simple. And we think that your opponent is doing a lot of things. It's so complex. The position is so, too many variations to calculate. And here for Nodirbek, he spent 3 minutes and played this move e5, which looks really crazy. But the point is here that, actually, this best move is to take on e5 with the rook, but it is not a free pawn because black here can play f6. And for white needs to actually to take the bishop on e7. But even though here white is down a little bit of material, but the point is that black's king is not that good. And after queen b3, threatening this pawn on b7, let's say if you go b6, but now after bishop b4 check, king goes back, let's say. And after takes, white is going to open up this position and use his bishop pair to create chaos, to create some attack on black's king. But of course, with accurate defense, black is going to be fine, and this position is completely equalized by the computer. But of course, there's just so many calculations that's going to be done to take on e5 and then take on e7. And as a human, it's so hard to evaluate what is going to happen after all of these exchanges and whether white really has any play on black's king. So here, after a long time thinking, Vincent, he didn't really dare to take on e5. For any player, I think taking on e5 will be really risky because you're not sure if you really could create counterplay after all of this. And instead here Vincent decides to play this other move, but it is not a move that the computer likes, and it is bishop d3, which is like a blunder. But actually this is the second best move in this position, and you can just infer that besides rook e5, all of the other moves are chaotic for the white pieces, are bad. But here after bishop d3, which seems okay, the point is that here Nodirbek shows us why bishop d3 is a mistake. It's because, first of all, you give a check on g1, king goes up, you trade the queens, and after rook takes d1, here you can't really take with the king because there's bishop g4, forking this king and the rook and winning immediately. So you have to take with this rook, but still you have bishop g4. And here after rook takes e5, f6 was played. So for Nodirbek, he calculated everything not to take on d1 because after king takes, no f6 doesn't do anything because the rook can come out. And with the bishop pair, it is a really nice position actually indeed for the white pieces. So the difference here is very obvious because after f6, white cannot play rook h5, and here he has to take on e7. And after king takes e7, the point is that here it is much better for black to keep this light square bishop on the board than the dark square bishop compared in this, not that position, but in this, wait a minute. Oh yeah, in this position, where black has the dark square bishop. As you can see, it is really passive because all of these pawns are on dark squares and the bishop is just simply locked inside the pawn chains. But if you keep the light square bishop on the board, this is now something good for the black pieces because all of these light squares are completely free for the bishop to cooperate. So here after f6 takes, rook g1 and rook g8 takes. But for Vincent, he definitely wants to open up more diagonals for his bishop pair. And here he played e4. Although already it is not that easy for him to improve or to keep the position in control. Here he decides to play e4. But I mean, now with the moves that the computer suggests are all really weird, like rook g3, rook c1, doesn't really make that much of sense. And here e4, I think, makes a bit of sense because, as I've said, you do want to open up more diagonals. But here, Nodirbek, he just simply replied calmly and accurately with bishop d7, bishop check, and king goes to f7. And now rook g3 was played. But for black, in general, when you're up material and you're having a really nice position, just trade as much pieces as possible and go for the endgame. Although you do have to be careful about what endgame you trade into, because there are still some endgames where even if you are up material, but it's not that easy for you to win. For example, like opposite colored bishop endgames or rook and pawn endgames. These are types of endgames where it's quite like your opponent who is worse will have higher possibilities of making a draw. But here it's nothing related to that, and black just happily takes, and after h takes, bishop takes, and f5. Now, you can't really take on b7 because after bishop b7, there's now rook b8 and you lose one of the bishops. Well, of course, there's check on d5, but you just go bishop e6 and one of the bishops are going to go off the board. And here after a3, this pawn is going to be falling off on the very next move and black is going to win. All right, and now bishop check, bishop blocks, bishop goes back, rook d8, king goes up, but already this is just a no problem win for Nodirbek. He knows how to win this with ease. And after bishop takes, rook takes, the rest of the game is quite clean for the black pieces. And here, just need to swing your rooks over around, and then these pawns will fall. Like the rook is going to go over here, and the king and the bishop are simply overloaded. They have to defend too many pawns, and this position is completely lost for the white pieces. So here, Nodirbek wins after move 41, where Vincent resigned after rook h1. And this is a very important win for Nodirbek because he is now in 1 point lead. Second place is Gukesh Sindarov, who is 4.5 out of 7. For Nodirbek, 5.5 out of 7, and there's still a couple of games left. Still, it's not like 100% for him to win this whole tournament, but he definitely has the biggest chances. And if he keeps on performing this good, definitely I believe that he is going to win. But as you can see, all of these games, the quality is really high. There were some lucky games, but also most of them, he really showed some real skills that he had. His opponent are all 2700s. So basically, it's not that easy to win every game, but he dominated simply this whole tournament so far. And yeah, wish him good luck in the rest of the games. But right now, hope you guys enjoyed my recap of this game, and hope you guys enjoyed this whole video as well. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!